Okay, hi everyone. Good evening or good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Chemezie. I'm the program officer here at the Tony Elumelu Foundation. You're welcome to this very exciting masterclass session on how to pitch to investors. With me, I have the facilitator for this session, Chidi Wogu, who is a tech entrepreneur and software developer. Started his entrepreneurial journey at 16 as an indie game developer. Now, today, Wogu is one of the founders of Publisher, a digital distribution company for independent African content creators, recognized by Ernst& Young as one of the 100 most meaningful businesses in the world. He's also one of the founders of Savvy, a global business incubation company for aspiring and early stage entrepreneurs, recognized by 100.org as one of the 100 most impactful and scalable innovations in education. Since Chidi was 19, he has founded, grown, and sold two successful tech companies. One of them is Lagbook, a social network that garnered over 1 million registered users within 3 years and was acquired in 2013. He has been recognized as one of the most powerful young Nigerians for the year 2021 by Y Niger and by Legit.ng as one of the 8 most outstanding business personalities in Nigeria. Thank you, Chidi, for joining us today and for facilitating this exciting masterclass. Thank you. Over to you, Foko.
Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue une fois de plus à cette session de masterclass. Donc aujourd'hui, nous allons échanger sur comment présenter son projet aux investisseurs, donc comment pitcher son projet. Et notre speaker aujourd'hui, c'est Shidi Naogu, qui est un développeur, c'est un entrepreneur de la tech, c'est un développeur et il a vraiment fait beaucoup de choses. C'est quelqu'un qui a des lauriers dans le monde. Il a été reconnu par Ernst Young comme l'un des 100 plus importants affaires dans le monde. Il a aussi été reconnu comme l'un par 100.org, OK, comme l'un des 100 personnes qui pouvaient impacter sur la croissance de l'innovation dans le domaine de l'éducation. Tenez-vous compte qu'à 19 ans, il a créé une start-up, Lagbook, qui avait en 2013 plus d'1 million de personnes connectées. Donc, comme vous dites, c'est quelqu'un de très calé que nous avons aujourd'hui et on va l'écouter. Merci encore et bienvenue. Over to you, Shidi.
Yeah, thanks, Foko. So today we're going to be talking about how to pitch to investors. So if you are here, listening to this, obviously you have a great business, you've built an exciting product, and you're looking for funding to take you from point A to point B. You're trying to scale your product, you're trying to scale your business operations, and obviously money is very important, even if we know that ideas is also great, but money is also very important, to scale your business. So today I'll be talking to you about how to raise that funding, how to convince an investor that you're the right person or your business is the right bet. But before we start, we should think about what are the different types of pitches. We have investor pitch, which is what we're talking about now. And we have sales pitch, we have product pitch. But at the end of the day, what a pitch is all about is you're trying to get the person's attention. You're trying to create that empathy. You want them to really see the vision and to empathize with, the journey of your users. And then you want them to build trust in yourself, in what you're building and your journey ahead. But most importantly, you're trying to urge them to take an action, in this case, to fund your business. And so today, I would, during this masterclass, I'll be talking to you about how you can achieve that. Over to you, Foko.
OK. Comment pitcher? Je voulais dire comment présenter son projet, comment vendre. En réalité, l'objectif de la présentation de son projet, c'est de vendre. Et généralement, ça se passe dans une très petite période. Et l'objectif ici, c'est d'avoir la chance de captiver l'attention de l'investisseur qui est en face de vous. Et pour cela, il peut arriver qu'on ait le pitch du produit, le pitch de l'entreprise et son pitch personnel. Donc, c'est ce qu'on va échanger aujourd'hui. Over to you.
Well, let's start with a quote by Albert Einstein. It says, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't understand it well enough. So let me explain what this means. It means that when you pitch into an investor, avoid technical words. And obviously you want to sound intelligent, you want to sound smart so that they can know that you know what you're doing. But then technical words can also cause confusion. For example, your investors might not have industry knowledge. They don't understand your industry well enough. Or they might have money, but they might not be the smartest in the room. So maybe you're way smarter than them. And using so much technical words can actually cause confusion rather than impress them. So for example, if you want to say, my business has 12 months of runway. Imagine an investor who does not understand what a runway is, but have money to fund your business, or an investor who has a physics background where runway means a completely different thing. Obviously, a word can mean different things across different sectors. And so when you say runway, they think about thermal runway, and then it's completely different from the runway in business. And so you're trying to communicate, but you're not communicating. And the goal of an investor pitch is to communicate clearly to the investor. So keep it short and simple. Avoid using technical words or avoid trying to be smart. Just try to communicate and create that empathy that you're looking for. So I would conclude this by saying, in a nutshell, when you're pitching to an investor, try to talk about your business in a way that an 80-year-old will understand it. And if an 8-year-old cannot understand your pitch, then you failed in your mission, to communicate your value proposition. Foko?
Oui, donc il est question, lorsque vous devez présenter un projet aux investisseurs, d'être vraiment très soft, de ne pas utiliser des gros mots ou des mots techniques, parce que généralement, l'investisseur peut ne pas être dans le domaine comme vous. Et ce qu'il faut retenir, c'est que présenter un projet, c'est communiquer avec des investisseurs, avec une personne qui probablement va être intéressée par votre affaire si vous réussissez à captiver son attention. C'est pour ça qu'on vous demande que lorsque vous présentez un projet, utilisez des mots simples et expressifs, de façon que même un enfant de la maternelle, un enfant de 4 ans, peut comprendre en fait ce que vous expliquez et où vous allez. Voilà en quoi consiste cet exercice. Over to you.
So let's talk about pitching. And pitching is the most important part. And I love it because it's something dear to me. If you want to excel at pitching, pitching is like an act. It's just the same way you learn to paint, the same way you learn to speak English. Pitching is an act, and you can learn how to pitch effectively. When I'm talking about pitching, I love to use three important, or I love to break down the pitch in three important parts. One is the story of self, the other is the story of us, and then the third is the story of now. This tells us that pitching is storytelling. Someone is listening to you, in this case is an investor, who has not heard about your business, might have never heard about your business, might have never heard about the product you're building, I've never heard about you or seen you in the past. But you're trying to, within maybe 5 minutes, convince them that you're the right person to invest in, and that you're building a great product, and that you have the clearest vision, and you have the right team to do, to bring or to execute this. So how can you do that? First, the story of self. And the story of self talks about yourself. How did you encounter the problem? Now, there are two ways in which you can encounter a problem. You can encounter the problem that you experienced it, or you can encounter the problem that someone very close to you experienced it, and you were there to watch it happen firsthand. Now I'm going to use my own business as a case study. My twin brother, sometime in 2014, he decided to write a book. And then, no, I wrote the book. He, created the music. And he was looking for a way to distribute his music. And someone told him about a platform. I'm not going to say the platform here. And the platform was to help him distribute his music to TuneCore and other platforms. But eventually, they pay royalties via PayPal. And so he was not able to receive his royalties because we know in places like Nigeria and Ghana, we don't have access to that. So he had to go for the alternative, which was check payment. But then the check didn't arrive. And when he reached out to them, they said, someone in Oslo, Norway intercepted the check and took it. And so he was devastated. Now that was a problem. The problem was that the current aggregators were not designed for African creatives. And that's the story of self. The story of self shows how we encounter the problem, shows how we are connected to the problem, shows that the problem that we're trying to solve is something we hold so dear to our heart. And this means that even if this investor does not invest in our business today, we are still going to keep moving because this is something we hope, that we really want to solve. It also shows that if we need to pivot in the future, we are going to do it because we're not in love with the solution. Rather, we're in love with the problem because it's the problem that we experienced. And we're going to look for any way or any solution possible to solve this problem. So I'm going to stop there and take it over to Fogo.
Okay, thank you, Shidi. I don't know, the slide is moving or not, please. I am always in the first slide. I don't know if you are moving. If yes, please go on. Can you move to where you are now, please?
I'm moving. Can you see?
No, I was not saying it was not moving. Now it is moving. Okay,
Okay.
just stop where you are. Okay, thank you. Thank you too much. Ok, donc, la présentation d'un projet, en fait, vous devez comprendre que doit d'abord concerner une cible, c'est-à-dire que quelles sont les personnes que vous voulez avoir comme investisseurs au sein de votre entreprise. Et ces personnes sont des gens qui doivent avoir du begin ou un intérêt dans la solution ou le problème que vous apportez au sein de la société. C'est ça, en fait, l'intérêt de faire la présentation. Et en conséquence, il est question pour vous de présenter, par exemple, votre équipe, déjà de présenter le problème, dans quelles circonstances vous avez eu ce problème pour lequel vous apportez une solution et que ce problème doit être un problème réel au sein de votre environnement. Il est question pour vous aussi de parler de l'expérience de l'équipe, c'est-à-dire tous ceux qui sont autour de vous et qui interviennent pour que cette solution soit véritablement implémentable ou applicable pour la cible que vous avez identifiée en termes de clientèle. Donc voilà globalement ce qu'on attend de vous lorsque vous devez faire une présentation. Et généralement, les investisseurs sont des gens qui mettent leur argent parce que vous avez une idée innovative qui apporte du nouveau au sein de la société. Et dans le cas de l'implantation, bien évidemment, il peut arriver que vous pivotez, que vous changez l'idée ou bien que vous changez de solution, ça va de soi. Et les investisseurs, généralement, sont des personnes qui doivent comprendre les risques que vous prenez et comment est-ce que vous faites pour atténuer ces risques-là s'ils vous font confiance. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Foco. So now that you've established how you found, how you encountered the problem, and you've told us personal story on a small scale, what that problem is about, now you go to what they call the story of self of us. Now the story of us takes that problem on a bigger scale. Now you can take it like, well, I'm not the only person that experiences this problem. There are over 5,000, 50,000 creatives around the world that experience this problem. They're over, and you get it. So now you key that personal story into a larger statistics. Because if you go straight to statistics saying, oh, do you know that 50 million people around the world suffer from this? It's actually good, the numbers, but then you don't create empathy. You're just literally talking about numbers. But then if you start with a personal story of someone, maybe in India, maybe in Nigeria, maybe in South Africa, you tell them about the story of how this problem happens in a very small scale, in a very local, in a local place. And then you key that up to a much bigger problem, to a much bigger scale. That, okay, my brother experienced this or my mother experienced this, but my mother is not alone. There are 1 million other women around the world that are experiencing this problem as well. And this problem is growing over time. Maybe 500 women used to experience it in 2010, but according to statistics, now 1 million people experiencing it. This is over like 40% increase. You're now telling them the story of us, that I'm not, it's not just me alone. It's actually happening to us on a bigger scale. That takes from empathy into concern. They empathized with your story, but now they are more concerned about, if this can happen to him, this is happening on different scales in a million places. And this means that we need to do something now. And that takes us to the story of now. The story of now is literally urgency. You're literally telling them that, hey, if we don't do something now, this is what's going to happen. So you can say that according to, maybe if you do, maybe it could be a it could be a primary research or secondary research, but then you're letting them know that, hey, this problem has been increasing or has been growing since 2014, over 40%. And then in the next 20 years, it's going to grow by another 70%. And this means that it's growing at an accelerating rate. And if something is not done now, these are the consequences. This is what's going to happen. This is what's going to happen. And then you're creating a sense of urgency. And that's the story of now. And then you're now prompting them to say, hey, I want to be part of the solution now, because this is the right time. If we don't do something about it now, there's going to be a much bigger, consequences in the future. And that's how you get someone's attention. So over to you, Fogo.
Okay, thank you. Please move the slide, please. I'm not seeing what you are. Just move
I'm
once.
still on the same slide. I'm not literally using this slide. I'm just speaking from the heart.
Okay. Donc, vous devez comprendre que présenter un projet, c'est une question d'empathie. Ça veut dire quoi? Ça veut dire que il est question pour vous de créer de l'émotion autour de projet pour captiver l'intérêt des gens. Donc, il a pris l'exemple que pour introduire, par exemple, votre projet qui a apporté de l'impact autour de vous, peut-être sur un nombre limité de personnes, disons même 10 ou 20, vous devez présenter votre histoire ou l'histoire de quelqu'un d'autre. Ça peut être en Inde, ça peut être au Nigeria, ça peut être en Afrique du Sud. Vous devez raconter une histoire qui captive et qui crée de l'émotion pour les autres, auprès des gens. Parce que l'histoire pour lequel, le problème pour lequel vous apportez une solution et que vous avez transformé en une histoire impactante peut être quelque chose qui concerne 20 millions de personnes, 50 millions de personnes. Et là, donc, à ce moment, quand vous créez cet amour, cette empathie, cette envie ou cette émotion auprès des gens, vous leur dites que, attention, moi j'ai la solution à ce problème, ce que je viens de vous poser. Et c'est là où ça devient intéressant, parce que vous exprimez un problème que vous avez eu à vivre et qui peut être généralisé, et vous appuyez en montrant même l'urgence à régler ce problème. Et pour finir, vous démontrez ou bien vous présentez le fait que, en fait, vous avez une solution pour ce problème-là. Donc voilà comment on captive les gens lorsqu'on veut présenter un projet. Over to you.
Thank you, Foco. So a typical presentation slide or investor's pitch deck can have 8 slides and these are them, it's the hook, the problem, the solution, the opportunity, business model, traction, team, and ask. So the hook is usually given, people does the hook in different ways, A great way to start it, which is the hook, is you can ask a question. And then the question, you answer the question at the end of the pitch, so you can start by saying, how many of you found it difficult to come over here? Maybe you're solving a problem with logistics or transportation, how many of you experienced the problem, coming, getting over here? Maybe if it's a physical pitch, and then people in the room can raise up their hands, and you'd say, okay, we'll get back to you at the end of the pitch. And at the end of the pitch, you say, this is how we are, solving that problem of getting to somewhere on time, So that's how you do the hook. People do, provide the hook in different ways. So I will, I would let Foco, speak about that. Then I would go to the next, part here.
OK. Donc, il vient de nous parler un peu de, comment on va dire, le piège ou bien quelque chose qui peut accrocher les gens. Quand vous regardez le pictogramme, c'est un crochet. Donc, il est question que l'histoire que vous racontez pour attirer les gens dans votre projet ou bien vers votre solution soit quelque chose qui captive suffisamment. Donc, il est ici question pour vous de comprendre que lorsqu'on est start-up ou bien lorsqu'on est une entreprise, dans tous les cas, quand il est question de présenter votre projet, vous devez avoir comme un appât. Vous devez avoir quelque chose qui va captiver les gens afin qu'eux, ils soient conscients qu'ils doivent adhérer à votre solution ou bien qu'ils compatissent avec le problème pour lequel vous apportez la solution au point où ils peuvent même prendre sur eux de parler de ça aux autres. Donc, voilà un peu le but de la manœuvre. Over to you.
Yeah. So yeah, thank you. So now, let's talk about more after the question. So you usually start with a question or a bold statement, and the reason why you starting with a question or a bold statement is initially to grab attention for those who are not really paying attention. Then after that, you share your vision and you tell your story, which is the story of self, then us, and then now. And that story, illustrates the problem and the solution. Then finally, you pitch a summary, to bring all the elements together. This is where you answer the question. Maybe if you ask the question in the part, at the beginning, you begin to answer the question now and how your solution is actually solving that problem. And bringing all these elements together is just to convey the value and the potential of your business. So I'm going to give you examples so this doesn't look so theoretical. So on the part of asking a question, asking a question is used to engage the investor, right from the start, by making them to think about a relevant, problem or opportunity. You can say things like, have you ever wondered why, X amount of small businesses fail within the first 2 years? What if there was a way to reduce this failure rate by maybe half? That's a way to say, that's a great way to ask a question. Then you go to the statement, and you're trying to make a statement. So now the statement is used to convey the importance or uniqueness of your idea or your product or your services. A great way to convey this is, or to make a statement is maybe like you can say over 75% of consumers or customers are willing to pay more for a sustainable product, maybe, but yet only 20% of businesses are meeting this demand. So there's a gap of, let's say, 55%. That's a statement, right? That shows the statistics. Then you share your vision. Now the vision is for you to paint a picture, of the future that you see as a founder. Because as a founder, you're a visionary, right? So now you're trying to paint that picture so that the investors can see the future that you're trying to build, or the future that you're trying to see as a person, and why it matters, that this future actually happens. So a great way to say, to share a vision could be, for example, this is all examples. You can say, we envision. It's good to use we, even if you're the only person in the company at the moment. Obviously it means that it's not just a journey that you are going to take alone. You're going to have co-founders, you're going to have partners, you're going to have, investors in the future and stuff like that. But you're not going to, everybody knows that you cannot create something great alone, So it's always important that you use the word we. And so you can say, we envision a world where every child, has access to high quality education, regardless of their location or their financial background, So our platform is making that vision a reality. That's an example of you sharing your vision. Then you move to telling a story. Telling a story is to create an emotional connection, by humanizing your pitch, and making it more call it relatable. So an example could be, 2 years ago, I met a single mother who was struggling to find affordable, childcare services, while pursuing her career. And her story inspired me to create a solution, or to create a product that helps parents to balance work and family life. That could be a story. Then you conclude it with a pitch. You pitching your summary. So the pitch, you pitching the summary is more of a concisely, bringing your value proposition, the market opportunity, and why your company is the right solution, bringing that together. So an example would be, our platform connects small businesses with vetted, freelance, professionals, enabling them to scale operations, without the overhead of a full-time hire. And you can go on by saying, in a market worth maybe X amount of, $1 billion, we are on track to capture, let's say 7% or let's say Y% in the next 3 years, thanks to our unique matching algorithm. So that could be, how you can do it. So first, ask a question. 2, make a statement. 3, share a vision. 4, tell a story. And then 5, pitch summary. Over to you, Fabrice.
Comment commencer lorsqu'on veut rédiger sa présentation, son pitch? On dit qu'il faut toujours commencer de façon très claire au point d'impacter. Parce que votre introduction doit être quelque chose de suffisamment captivant. La décision, on doit pouvoir la voir en moins de 15 minutes. Alors, le point d'ancrage qu'on a dit, expliqué tout à l'heure, c'est-à-dire pour dire en français le crochet, le point d'ancrage, doit comprendre 5 étapes telles que vous voyez sur l'écran. La première chose, c'est que vous devez commencer votre présentation en posant une question au public, donc, ou bien en mettant un questionnement. De ce questionnement, vous devez passer à une énonciation, donc une déclaration de vos valeurs. Après ça, vous devez partager votre vision, raconter une histoire avant de faire un sommaire de là où vous voulez vraiment en venir. Donc, vous comprenez ici que en commençant par poser une question pour laquelle vous n'attendez forcément pas de réponse, ça permet de captiver l'attention de ceux qui étaient inattentifs ou bien qui n'avaient pas encore compris de quoi est-ce qu'on voulait parler. Il faut que la question soit impactante. À la suite de ça, vous énoncez qu'est-ce qui vous a marqué vous-même. Qu'est-ce qui vous a impacté? Pourquoi est-ce que vous avez mis en place ce projet ou ce produit? Et ça permet aux uns et aux autres de comprendre réellement quelle est votre vision, parce qu'après avoir déclaré un certain nombre de choses, vous partagez maintenant votre mission, pardon, votre vision, c'est-à-dire sur le long terme, vous voulez aboutir véritablement à quoi? Pour que les gens comprennent que en s'alliant à vous, c'est pour une aventure durable. Et quand vous avez fait cette projection sur le long terme, c'est là où vous sortez maintenant l'histoire dont on vous a parlé tout à l'heure. Vous sortez une histoire qui permet aux uns et aux autres de comprendre, non, d'avoir de l'émotion. Vous créez une affaire qui va créer ce qu'on appelle l'empathie. Donc, c'est une émotion qui permet aux gens d'adhérer facilement à votre cause. Et quand vous l'avez fait, vous passez maintenant à une présentation succincte de ce qui va suivre. Over to you.
Thank you, Foko. So every pitch starts with the problem statement. And the problem statement is to illustrate, it's a story to illustrate the problem, on a very small scale, like I said, talk about a personal story. And then, or like call it small or intimate scale, so it's on a scale that people can relate to. And then you go straight to statistics to show, how big this scale is or how big this problem is and how it has evolved over time. And I would like to talk about current hack. And I use the word current hack is a popular word, but why I want to emphasize current hack is because a lot of people are solving a problem that don't exist. And I'll explain to you. So if a problem really exists, then people would have found a way to solve the problem. Maybe the way they solve this problem is not ideal. Maybe it's too time consuming, it's too expensive, it's not accurate. But people must have found a way around it. That's how human beings work. When we experience a problem, we find a way to solve it. It might not be ideal, but it might just get us to move the needle. So ask yourself, what are the current hacks? How do people currently solve this problem? And if there's no current hack, that means that problem does not exist. Because if that problem exists, people would have found a way around it. So let me explain to you. When Carl Benz, created the internal combustion engine, which is literally what we used for the motor vehicles, to move. That was not the first way in which people moved. People moved in different ways. People moved at that time. The most popular was, horses and carriages, right? So at the end of the day, people moved, but he wanted a way that was faster and didn't, require us, animals to reach. We know animals also get tired as well. Something that could, can help us, move for days, and faster. And so he understand that we needed something faster than a horse, and something also safe as well. And that's how the motor vehicles, came about. So there must be a current hack. The current hack might not be ideal, but it must exist. So when you're trying to solve a problem, ask yourself, what are the current hacks? How are people getting by today? And find a way in which your own product is way much better than theirs. It could be helping them to cut costs, or helping them to save. Helping someone save money is also helping them to earn money, because money saved is money earned. So it could helping them cut costs. It could also be helping them do their job more effectively. Whichever the case, you're literally helping your customers. So ask yourself, and the easiest way to come about a problem is by shadowing your customers. And I'll explain that. A friend of mine some years ago, he came back from the US, and he wanted to create a product for farmers, for smallholder farmers. Now, he didn't know what the problem was. He didn't know what the solution was. But the right way to go about this is go problem first before solution. And so he went to go shadow them. And then he discovered all the problems that existed, and then he decided, how can I solve this problem, right? So, to explain your problem statement, ask yourself, what are my customers, what's making my customers, what are they losing as a result of, of my product not being there? That will help you to write your problem statement, and then, tell them how much, this problem has existed, how much this market has evolved over time. The aim is to just tell them how people experience the problem. That's the problem statement. How, or the pain in which your customers feel. Then you go to the solution. But people often make this mistake when they're pitching to investors. They have an amazing problem statement, but it does not connect to the solution. So you have an amazing problem statement, but your solution does not in any way solve that problem, or it's not even connected, or it does not even solve the problem adequately. So the aim is for you to show how your solution solves that problem that you said adequately. When I say adequately, it means completely, or to an extent that is desirable, right? So this also includes you talking about the key features of your product. And note that don't focus on the technology in this case. Focus on what your users can achieve with your product. People don't really care about the technology. Even the investors might not really care much about the technology in the first, when you're starting out. What they care is what can people achieve with what you're doing. Because we know that smallholder farmers obviously don't need sophisticated technology, because they don't know how to use it. So at the end of the day, it's not about the technology. It's about what your users can achieve with it. So when you're talking about your solution, don't be so driven to say, hey, we use blockchain, we use AI, we use ML. It's good to say that. But focus, be more concerned about what your users can achieve with it. If you must speak about AI and ML, explain how that ties into the overall value of the, of your product, how that improves the products, how that improves the lives of your users, and not just because it's just AI, So make sure that, and also make sure that when you're demonstrating your solution, you're demonstrating a product and not an additional feature. And let me explain what that means. So many people are building full-blown solutions that are not solutions. It's just an existing product out there. They just added one or two features and they have their own product. That doesn't make you unique. So you must talk about the uniqueness of your product. And this does not mean the additional features. It means what sets you apart from your customers. And then the last but not the least, the impact of your solution. If you're just starting out, maybe you don't have much impact, but you can talk about the impact that you see, and then you make it data driven. So speak about, we're going to do this in the next 5 years, and this is how we're going to do it. So investors are most interested in your path to profitability or your path to an exit. In whichever the case, it means they're going to get their money back, right? And I always say this, when you're pitching to an investor, understand that the only way you're going to get the return on investment for your investor is through your customers. Because at the end of the day, the investors are giving you the money to get maybe, let's say, 10x back. And how are you going to get that money? From your customers. So do not let your pitch be focused on the customers. How you intend to get your customers to pay for this? I always say, make sure that your customers pay for your products from day one, right? Because at the end of the day, they can give you more money than your investor will ever give to you. If you're raising money from your investor, is for you to be able to adopt more customers or onboard more customers and generate more revenue that you can give to your customer, to your investor, and also have for yourself and for the business in the long run. So when you're speaking about your solution, make sure that, or when you're speaking about when you're pitching, make sure that your pitch is user driven. You speak about your customer every step of the way, from the problem to the solution, to the market, to the traction, and then to your ask. Make sure that every step of the way, it's like a story that talks about how you're going to provide value to your customers. Over to you, Foco.
Est-ce que mon père travaille dans le
OK. Donc, vous devez comprendre que lorsqu'on fait dans une présentation, il faut relever le problème et la solution. Et lorsqu'on relève le problème, ça doit être sur un certain nombre d'aspects. Quel est le problème pour lequel on apporte une solution? Quelle est l'importance de ce problème? Quelle est l'importance de résoudre ce problème? Est-ce que ce problème apporte une certaine douleur? Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui touche les gens? Est-ce que c'est quelque chose qui apporte une douleur au point où eux, ils ont envie de résoudre toute la recherche de la solution? Et comment est-ce que, et qui sont ceux qui ressentent cette douleur du problème que vous avez constaté dans votre environnement? Donc, vous comprenez ici que les faits doivent être ce sur quoi vous vous appuyez pour faire une histoire à vendre, pour raconter une histoire vendable. Et à côté de ces problèmes, vous devez être capable de démontrer que vous apportez une solution factuelle. Parce que d'après vous, le problème que vous avez observé dans votre environnement, il y a la solution à l'intérieur et cette solution, vous l'avez. Il n'est pas question ici de blaser les gens avec la technologie. Non, il est question ici de montrer aux gens, à vos clients, aux investisseurs, que vous apportez de la valeur à tous ceux qui sont autour de vous, aux parties prenantes. Il est question de le démontrer. Et cette démonstration peut se faire à travers les caractéristiques de la solution que vous apportez. Et pour ça, donc, vous devez aussi montrer quel est l'impact que cette solution a directement dans votre environnement. Et c'est de ça qu'il s'agit lorsqu'on parle de problème contre solution. Pour vous, vendre votre projet, c'est-à-dire le présenter aux investisseurs, c'est de faire ressortir à un moment ces deux aspects, le problème et la solution. Over to you.
Okay, yeah, I was on mute. Sorry about that. So now we're going to the market. And so the market is divided into TAM, SAM, SOM. TAM is an acronym for Total Addressable Market. SAM is Serviceable Addressable Available Market. And then SOM is Serviceable Obtainable Market. And I'll tell the difference between them. So TAM is the total market. This is the total market demand for your product or your service. And it's often represents the maximum revenue opportunity if your product or your service could achieve 100% market share without any constraints. So I'll give an example. If you're launching a new online learning platform, your TAM is going to represent the entire global market of for online education, and this includes all potential users. Now, the SAM, which is the serviceable addressable market, is a portion of the TAM. And this, this tells, what your product can realistically serve. This considers factors like, the geography, the technology limits, and your business model. For example, now we're still using the online learning platform example. If you're building an online learning platform, your SAM could be the market for online learning, but this time maybe in English-speaking countries. If you serve your product in primarily in English, your SAM could be the market for online learning in English speaking countries where your platform is readily accessible. And then your SOM, which is the serviceable obtainable market, which I often like to call entry market or first market, is a subset of SAM. And this talks about the market that you can readily capture in the near future, considering your current resources, limitations, competitions, and marketing efforts. And it's your it's your target market. Like I said, that's what I like to, I like to call it. And I like to call it the forgiving market. This is the market that you learn from, and then you expand, and then to more unforgiving and advanced markets. So for example, maybe, so your sum could, for an online learning platform, your sum could, or might be the percentage of English speaking markets, that you can realistically attract within the next, few years, maybe 5 years, given your current marketing, budget and your sales strategy. So in a nutshell, your SAM shows to the investors the big picture of your market potential. Then SAM, tells, the investors, or makes the investors to understand the realistic market opportunities of your product or your solution based on your specific business focus. And then the sum, which is the last one, gives a concrete idea of your initial goals, and your growth potential, or your initial growth potentials. This helps the investors to gauge the feasibility of your product and the expected returns on investment for your product. Over to you, Father.
Donc, dans votre projet, vous devez aussi savoir quelles sont les opportunités que vous captivez à travers votre projet. Et ici, il est question de faire ressortir ces opportunités et le potentiel de marché. Ici, il a parlé de 3 concepts. C'est le TAM, le SAM et le SOM. Le TAM, en fait, c'est l'ensemble du marché que vous pouvez avoir. Le SAM, c'est le service disponible que vous pouvez mettre sur le marché. Et le SOM, c'est le service que vous pouvez obtenir. C'est-à-dire qu'il y a ce que vous pouvez mettre sur le marché, il y a ce que vous pouvez obtenir. Et pour cela, vous devez mettre au devant quelles sont les ressources qui vous permettent de faire vos hypothèses, comme par exemple les hypothèses de vente. Et cette analyse peut être à partir du haut vers le bas ou du bas vers le haut. Donc, plus clairement, le TAM, qu'on a dit, la taille de marché que nous pouvons, la taille totale de marché que nous pouvons atteindre, c'est en fait à qui on peut s'adresser. C'est en fait toute la population qui peut acheter votre produit. Et ça, vous devez le savoir. Donc, cette population-là, ça peut être des jeunes d'un âge entre 10 et 85 ans. Ça dépend de vous. C'est ça qu'on appelle la segmentation. Non, ça, c'est la population totale. Pardon, ce n'est pas la segmentation. C'est les gens de 10 à 85 ans. Maintenant, le SAM, qui est le service disponible que vous pouvez mettre sur le marché, c'est que cette population que vous avez actuellement, qu'est-ce qu'eux, ils sont prêts à acheter? Et dans quelle zone, pour quel temps et à quel prix? C'est ça, en fait. Donc, quel est le marché disponible pour vous? Et la troisième chose, le SOM, c'est le service que vous pouvez atteindre. C'est-à-dire que de cette population-là, quels sont ceux qui peuvent effectivement acheter votre produit? Au-delà de ceux qui sont éligibles, si vous voulez. Quels sont ceux qui peuvent effectivement, ils ont pris le cadre du cinéma, où on dit, parmi tous les divertissements, il y a ceux qui aiment aller peut-être au cinéma, au théâtre, il y a ceux qui vont plutôt aller parier, il y a ceux qui vont plutôt aimer le voyage. Donc, vous devez connaître quel est votre potentiel et la taille du marché que vous pouvez atteindre. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Foka. Yeah, so now, which is the most important part, is the business. How do you make money and the traction? Because angel investors, might not be really interested about if you've made money yet, maybe because they are high net worth individuals, and they usually fund, in the very early stages. But if you're thinking about raising VC money, then you have to talk about traction. So the first thing is to tell your investor, how do you make money? Do you make money through subscriptions, which is maybe like percentage, maybe like monthly subscriptions, yearly subscriptions, or do you make money via a freemium, where you give them some things for free, and then if they want more value, you get they have to pay. How do you generate revenue? Is it commission? Whichever the case, you need to speak about your revenue streams. And if you make revenue streams for multiple, multiple ways, you need to talk about the different ways in which you generate revenue. Which one makes most money? Which stream makes most money for you? And how the what you think that, or maybe based on data, what you think the future is going to look like in terms of the stream that's going to generate the next or the more money for you in the future. Then after you've talked about your revenue stream, you now talk about the CAC, which is the customer acquisition cost. So the CAC is usually the cost to acquire a single customer, and it's easy. You can get this very easily. Think about your marketing budget. How much have you spent in marketing? This includes might also include how much you pay a salesperson, or you pay marketing personnel. Put every money that you spend in marketing, then put that number aside. Then ask yourself, how based on data, how many customers did you get within that same time frame? Maybe you spent $2,000 within 1 month on marketing, trying to get new customers and sales, and then you got 200 customers. Then 2,000 divided by 200 means your customer acquisition cost is just $10, and that's how you get your customer acquisition cost. The amount of money you spend trying to acquire them, and then the amount of customers you get, and then you do the division. This also tells you, this is a very important statistic because it lets you know if you're going to be profitable. When the next metric is going to explain that. So the next metric is the lifetime value of the customer, which is often, some people call it LTV, some people call it CLV. Whichever the case, it usually tells you how much a customer is going to give to you during their time with you. So maybe if you're just starting out, and so then maybe you don't know what your churn rate looks like, you can find out how long a customer stays with your competition or competing products or similar products in the market. It may be if a customer stays with similar products, maybe for 2 years before they go on to alternatives. This means that your own is very likely that your own product, your customers stay with you for 2 years as well. And then you ask yourself, how much does a customer give you a day, a month? If maybe they give you a subscription, maybe you get your money via subscription, and a customer gives a subscription, maybe it's $10 per month. 10 multiplied by 24, which is 2 years, gives you $240. That's your customer lifetime value. And then if it costs, it cost you $10 to acquire the customer, and they give you $240 dollars in return. That means that the CAC to LTV ratio is 1 to 24, and this means that you are likely to give your investors 24x of their money. And now we go to the traction. And the traction, you can never know your traction if you don't measure it. And so whatever you do, make sure that you measure it and have metrics for that. And out of your whole metrics, focus on just one metrics. You can have many metrics, but ask yourself, which one metric ties most to the success of your business? And that's what you call your North Star metric. So for us at our own business, at our own company, we're trying to help creatives to earn above the minimum wage, which in many countries in Africa is at least $150 per month. So our North Star metric is the number of creatives on our platform that earns at least $150 per month. This means that if we have maybe 10,000 creatives on our platform, but only 2,000, earns above the minimum wage, that's the true, our true traction, because that's the mission and that's the vision, we have as a company. So you should have your North Star metric, and it should tie closely to your vision as a founder, not just a vanity metric, because there are a lot of vanity metrics, page views, exit, bounce rate and stuff. Those are vanity metrics. The real metric should focus or should be tied to your vision as a founder. Now, another metric or another thing to record or to demonstrate your traction is your monthly recurring revenue, or sometimes your annual recurring revenue. How much do you make every month? This is the revenue, not the profit. How much do you make every month? Even if you've not broken even yet, it's also very important that you know how much you make every month. And the reason why it's going to explain is because when you know how much you make every month, you're going to know what your MOM, which is your month-on-month growth rate, looks like. And for an investor, an ideal month-on-month growth rate is 7%. This means that you're growing by 7%, at least 7% every month, and which is good. And another traction or another metric for you to focus on is your retention and your churn rate. So retention and churn rate are opposites, metric. So for example, your churn rate is how often customers are leaving your platform, which you're trying to reduce. Your retention is how often or how much you keep a customer, which is what you're trying to increase. So if your churn rate is going down, your retention is going up. And that's the aim of the business. You can tell the investor, oh, we have a churn rate of as low as 3%, which is safe. And our retention is as high as 97%, which is actually ideal. And or that's like great, or holy grail. So at the end of the day, these are the metrics or that you use to demonstrate your traction to your investor. Over to you, Foko.
Donc, concernant le business model et la traction, qui est un peu l'attirance que votre projet doit avoir, vous devez savoir que lorsqu'on s'adresse aux investisseurs, il faut leur expliquer votre modèle économique à travers ce que vous dites. C'est-à-dire comment est-ce que votre entreprise, votre start-up, votre activité génère de l'argent. Comment est-ce que vous faites pour gagner de l'argent? Et ici, par exemple, ça peut être un modèle de revenu basé sur les souscriptions à la demande, sur le modèle freemium. Freemium, ça veut dire qu'il y a un aspect qui est gratuit, ça attire les gens. Et derrière ça, maintenant, parmi les gens que ça a attiré, vous pouvez détecter qui sont ceux qui peuvent payer des services additionnels et que vous vendez. Il y a aussi le système de commission. Donc, dans votre modèle économique, vous devez aussi pouvoir faire ressortir qu'est-ce que la clientèle vous coûte, c'est-à-dire que quel est l'investissement que vous devez pouvoir faire pour pouvoir captiver de la clientèle. Et aussi l'énergie que vous mettez dans ça, le temps que ça vous prend pour pouvoir captiver la clientèle. Et dans le modèle économique, il est aussi question pour vous de montrer votre modèle de prix, votre système de coûts et même les marges. Pour ce qui est de l'attraction ou l'attirance, que votre projet doit avoir, il y a certains points clés que les investisseurs regardent. Et ces points clés permettent pour eux, non, ces points clés pour vous peuvent être des étapes importantes que vous avez atteintes dans le cadre de votre projet. Et ces étapes importantes peuvent s'apprécier à travers un certain nombre de mesures ou d'indicateurs clés, comme par exemple le volume de ventes, comme le nombre de clients ou le nombre d'usagers de votre plateforme. À côté de ça aussi, il y a ce qui peut encore attirer les gens, c'est ce que vous gagnez chaque mois. Et aussi, comment est-ce que vous faites pour gagner cet argent? Dans l'expertise qui est mise en avant afin que tous les mois, vous pouvez gagner un certain nombre d'argent. Une chose aussi importante pour attirer les investisseurs, c'est comment est-ce que vous faites pour rendre fidèle votre clientèle. Parce que ça peut être un point de compétitivité, quelque chose, un avantage que vous avez et que d'autres concurrents n'ont pas. C'est comment est-ce que vous attirez la clientèle et vous la retenez pour la rendre fidèle et quel est le taux de rotation que les gens ont à consommer votre produit si c'est un produit de grande consommation. L'autre chose qui peut attirer les investisseurs, c'est le taux de croissance. Ça, c'est clair. Le taux de croissance, le fait que d'année en année, votre chiffre d'affaires augmente, vous l'avez constaté à l'analyse des activités antérieures et vous présentez cela. Ça, c'est un élément important qui peut attirer les investisseurs. Et pour finir, il est question pour vous de montrer quelles sont les étapes à suivre dans les 5 prochaines années. En réalité, vos projections sur 5 ans, ça vous les connaissez, le bilan, le compte d'exploitation, le compte de résultat et ainsi de suite. Donc, vos projections sur 5 ans sont des choses. C'est pour ça qu'à la fondation, on vous apprend à faire le business model, on vous apprend à faire les plans financiers pour que vous puissiez être capable, lorsque vous faites votre présentation, de ressortir ces éléments financiers-là afin d'attirer les investisseurs. Over to you.
Thank you, Foko. Now we go to your team. And the team is very important because investors don't necessarily invest in your idea or your product because they understand that you might have to pivot. Usually the first product is not usually the ideal product. They understand that you might have to iterate a number of times. So they mostly focus on the founders. And this is when you're in the very early stage of your business, they focus on the founders, the people behind it, because that shows your resilience. That shows, are you able to stay through all the pivots? Are you willing to see it through? They test your perseverance. And that could be maybe you have a great track record. Maybe you've built a business in the past, made it successful, you sold it, or maybe you have industry understanding. Maybe you've worked at a good company or a company that has solved similar problem in the past, or maybe in a slightly different way, and then you're trying to solve it now in a much different, or you've noticed a gap in the previous company that you worked, and you've created a new company to solve that gap. Whichever the case, you're trying to show industry experience. And if you don't have the best of industry experience, that's still fine. You can explain to them that, hey, we have an advisory board of people that have this experience as well. These are people that are advising us along the way. So if before we make mistakes, or when we're trying to do something very daring, we reach out to them, tell them about it, and they give us advice or help us to connect us with key stakeholders within the industry. But it shows that they complement or they have that complementary or that missing experience that we don't have. Whichever the case, you also you're letting them know that, hey, we've got what it takes, the team behind it, which is the founding team, and our advisory board as well. Also, another thing to explain to them is, which I spoke about earlier, is how you encounter the problem, because that shows your commitment to it. It shows that you're doing the right thing for the right reason. You're not just doing it because you want to make money. Money is going to be a byproduct of doing something excellent, right? Also, when you're talking about the team, talk about your percentage ownership. Be clear about it. Hey, maybe I own 20%, another founder owns 20%, and then another founder owns 40%, whichever the case. Explain to them how the cap table looks like. When you're really small, like at the early stage, it wouldn't be good to have a very crowded cap table. So be very careful who you give equity out when you're very early, because that's going to affect when you're pitching, because if they say, who is this person, you give the person 30%, but I don't know I've never seen this person, I don't know what their contribution to this business is. So make sure that for every person that is on your cap table when you're starting out, they are actually providing some sort of great value to the business. Now then, talk about your future team expansion, how you intend to hire, what your company and culture looks like, if you have time to explain that, and how you're going to make sure that you hire the right people to help you to expand this business. Then comes to the most important part, which is the ask. And why I call the ask the most important part, because that's the call to action. Because at the end of the day, if you're talking about your business, blah, 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 but you don't tell them how you want them to engage with you, then everything is all worthless. So you need to tell them how much you're raising. How much do you want to raise? You might not raise the entire money, or you can even raise more than that. Oh, we're looking to raise $500,000. That's the ask, right? You might get an oversubscribed round, and then you might even raise 1 million, whichever the case, But you're trying to let them know this is how much we are trying to raise, $500,000, right? Which is the ask. Now you got to tell them what you want to use that money for. Now, do not tell them percentages. Oh, we're trying to raise $500,000. 10% will be used for product development. No. Tell them the exact money that will be used for product development. We're trying to raise $500,000. 50%, $50,000 will be used for product development. Instead of 10%, say $50,000. Make it clear how much you want to use for product development. So be specific. Tell them your current runway, if you feel comfortable about that. Tell them your current runway, how much you have left. Oh, with the money in the bank, we have 12 more months, and that's the reason why we're raising now, because we know that, hey, we need to start raising on time, right? This makes them understand that they have to give you this money maybe from now to the next 6 months, because your runway is closing up, it's coming very close, right? And then, tell them the equity that you intend to give to them for the money that they get. Oh, we're raising $500,000, and we're willing to give 30% of our business for $500,000. That gives you what the valuation of your business is, right? Because if 30% is $500,000, how much is 100%? You do the math. And if there's any investor that's currently committed to that $500,000, you need to also tell them, oh, we have, and which is actually a good thing. Oh, we have GIZ, has offered to give us $100,000 of this money, or we got $5,000 from the Tony Lumili Foundation, right? Tell them how much you've raised out of that $500,000. If you've raised, that's what's called matching funds. You're literally telling them that, hey, I have $100,000. We need $400,000 from you to match this fund, and then get to the $500,000 target that we're looking for. Over to you, Fogo.
Donc, lorsque vous faites une présentation à des investisseurs, et vous devez aussi parler de l'équipe Et l'équipe ici, vous devez parler des forces et de l'expérience de votre équipe. Attention, votre équipe, ce ne sont pas vos employés. Ça, c'est la déformation que les francophones ont. Votre équipe, ce n'est pas vos employés. Alors, vous devez dire qui sont les membres principaux de votre équipe et combien sont-ils? Alors, est-ce que l'industrie où vous êtes, c'est-à-dire l'activité où vous êtes et l'équipe que vous avez, l'expérience que vous avez, est-ce que c'est pertinent? C'est aussi ça qui rentre dans l'analyse ou la perception de votre équipe projet. Quel est le taux d'engagement de votre équipe dans la capitalisation de l'entreprise? C'est-à-dire que de comment est constitué votre capital. Voilà, comment est constitué votre capital, c'est une question ou un élément qui rentre dans la compréhension de votre équipe. Parce que la géographie de votre capital permet de comprendre que il y a des actionnaires australiens, il y a des actionnaires burkinabés, il y a des actionnaires peut-être ghanéens dans votre entreprise, ça compte. Ou bien, il y a des actionnaires qui sont dans telle certaine activité. Votre cofondeur, c'est un ancien banquier, ou bien votre cofondeur, c'est quelqu'un qui a eu affaire dans l'industrie brassicole pendant 10 ans, pendant 5 ans, pendant 3 ans. Tous ces éléments-là permettent d'avoir une bonne perception de votre équipe. Parce qu'en réalité, ça permet qu'on comprenne qu'on peut vous faire confiance. Ça ne sera pas à vous seul, le porteur de projet ou le promoteur ou bien le promoteur principal. Non. Lorsqu'on s'adresse à vous, en réalité, on s'adresse à une équipe. Et dans cette analyse de l'équipe, comment est-ce que vous faites pour recruter les membres de votre équipe? Quel est le plan de recrutement des membres de votre équipe? Je me répète, l'équipe ici, ce n'est pas les employés. Ce sont les actionnaires, ce sont les fournisseurs, ce sont en bref les parties prenantes clés que vous mettez au devant lorsque vous partez voir les investisseurs. Qui sont vos ressources? Quels sont vos appuis? Ce n'est pas vous seul. Quand vous parlez, oui, mais il faudrait qu'on, dans ce que vous dites, qu'on ressente que il y a, pour faire un français simple, qu'il y a une équipe derrière vous. Vous n'êtes pas seul. Et comment est-ce que cette équipe, vous les engagez en termes de temps, en termes d'argent? Est-ce que c'est des gens qui vous suivent régulièrement? Est-ce que c'est des gens qui montrent un intérêt particulier à ce que le projet puisse réussir? Donc voilà globalement les éléments qui rentrent dans la notion d'équipe. En anglais, on parle de team. Je dis bien, nous les francophones, on comprend toujours ça de façon très péjorative. Retenez aujourd'hui que lorsqu'on parle d'équipe, c'est un ensemble de choses. C'est surtout pas les employés. Ce n'est pas seulement les employés. OK. Pour finir sur ce point, il y a l'appel à l'action. C'est-à-dire que qu'est-ce que vous attendez de l'investisseur? Mieux encore, comment faire pour que l'investisseur passe à l'action lorsqu'il vous a écouté? Pour cela, il est question que vous puissiez montrer exactement à quoi est-ce que vous allez utiliser l'argent. Donc, quelle est la destination de l'argent? Ça ne sert à rien d'aller demander des financements sans qu'on ne perçoive en arrière-plan quelle est la destination de l'argent. C'est-à-dire quel est l'investissement. On ne parle pas de financement sans parler d'investissement. Nous avons vu des cas où des gens parlent, je veux tel montant, je veux l'argent. On ne connaît pas le montant d'argent. Je veux de financement et il est incapable de vous donner un proforma ou bien de justifier à quoi va servir l'argent. Ça, on en a vu. Quel est votre besoin? Quel est le besoin de votre entreprise? Ça, c'est des choses que vous devez faire ressortir. C'est ça qui pousse les investisseurs à mettre de l'argent dans votre projet. Je voulais dire à s'engager parce que leur engagement, ça peut être, comme on vous l'a dit dans un masterclass précédent, ça peut être le fait qu'ils vous donnent des clients, ça peut être le fait qu'ils vous donnent des fournisseurs, ça peut être le fait qu'ils vous donnent des contacts, ça peut même être le fait qu'ils vous apportent les garanties que généralement on dit que ça manque aux jeunes. Une banque n'a jamais dit que la garantie doit être au nom d'un jeune. Si vous êtes un jeune, allez donc aider dans votre équipe quelqu'un qui a des terrains. Ça peut être votre papa, ça peut être une connaissance qui a une réputation. Le seul fait qu'il soit dans votre équipe vous apporte une certaine crédibilité. En termes de capitalisation ou bien de valorisation, c'est des choses que les investisseurs doivent percevoir, que c'est déjà dans votre mindset, que dans votre façon de réfléchir, vous avez déjà ces talents. On sent que vous n'aurez pas de blocages lorsqu'on parle de valorisation. Et pour finir, quels sont les engagements que les autres ont déjà pris? Il faut qu'on se comprenne bien. Si déjà vous êtes dans un loyer et que le bailleur vous a accordé 10 ans de loyer que vous n'allez pas payer parce qu'il a pris des actions en retour, vous mettez ça au devant pour attirer les autres investisseurs. On appelle ça le levier. Ça vous sert de le levier pour permettre aux investisseurs de vous suivre. Ici, les investisseurs, ce sont aussi bien sûr d'autres parties prenantes, d'autres personnes qui ne sont pas encore dans votre équipe. Et quand eux aussi vont s'engager, vous comprendrez que eux aussi, les investisseurs dont on parle tant, vont maintenant rentrer dans votre équipe. Et un certain type d'investisseur peut aussi vous permettre, peut servir de levier pour captiver encore d'autres investisseurs. Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Foko. So here are some quick house rules when you're pitching. Do not look back. So if maybe you have your slide at the back of you, do not look at the, don't look back, because once you do that, you're literally distracting whoever is listening to you. Just focus on on the investors. You should know everything on your slide. And so when you put, you click, you touch the clicker to the next slide, you should be able to explain everything on that slide without having to look back always constantly. Because if you look back, one, is distracting, and two, it shows that you don't know what you're doing well enough. And so do not, look back at your screen. And be very audible. So what I'm doing right now is pitching, right? I'm literally telling you something, but it's pitching. At the end of the day, if you notice something, I do not follow, I'm not reading the screen, because some people literally read out the screen, and that's not your job. It's not your job to read out the screen. And make sure that this slide is not an ideal pitch deck. Now, an ideal pitch deck shouldn't use much words. It should use more photos, because photos, we know, is universal, right? It's a universal language. So if you have a problem, if you have a picture that depicts the problem that you're solving, put that in your slide and then speak about it. That way, people don't focus wholly on this slide. They focus on what you're saying. They focus on the person, which is you that is speaking. And that way they take more value than just what they read on your slide. Because if you put too much on your slide, you're going to have people that will stop listening to you and just read off your slides. Okay?
Donc, pour ce qui concerne les attitudes lorsque vous devez faire une présentation, c'est important que vous devez avoir une confiance en vous et maîtriser votre message. Ça vous permet de délivrer clairement et d'avoir une communication facile. Vous devez utiliser un langage qui impacte votre audience et vous devez maintenir le contact visuel et la gesture avec votre audience. Il faut que les gens sentent que vous êtes confiant quand vous vous exprimez. La posture est importante lorsque vous vous exprimez avec des gens. Vous devez vous lever, parler avec certitude, avec confiance. Et si vous avez une présentation, un PowerPoint, comprenez que les gens s'occupent plus des gestes. Et il y a même des gens qui savent lire la gestuelle. Il faudrait que les gens comprennent qu'en vous, il y a la confiance, il y a la sécurité pour leur investissement. Donc, la posture physique est très importante. Tout votre corps doit parler lorsque vous faites une présentation. Et ne vous focalisez pas seulement à lire ce qui est écrit ou bien à vouloir que les gens se concentrent sur ce que vous écrivez. Non, ce n'est pas ça. Généralement, les gens regardent plus ce que vous faites que ce que vous dites. C'est ça, en fait. Donc, il y a cet alliage entre tout ça, et c'est à travers votre corps, la gesture, le visuel, que vous aurez finalement une maîtrise de votre présentation. Over to you.
Yeah. Thank you, Foko. Now let's talk about the different types of investors. Let's start with the angel investors. So angel investors, I would like to call them HNIs, so they're high net worth individuals. These are people that have money, they've made money from different industries or different sectors, or maybe your sector, and they're looking for ways to put the money into the business. Most of us know that sometimes the CEO of Flutterwave, the senior of MoneyPoint, these people, they engage in funding rounds. The CEO of Paystack investing in another fintech. And so these are angel investors. Now, angel investors, there's literally not as much structure or no structure at all when compared to venture capitals. So this means that the due diligence is usually shorter. They make decisions based on not mostly data, but how they feel or emotions. So there's literally not much structure here. They invest in most times very early stage businesses that maybe that have maybe an MVP and maybe some proof of concept, but they usually invest in pre-seeds and seed rounds. That's where they engage in. They give between $100,000 to $500,000, and they take equity or convertible notes. So now equity is usually the percentage of your business. If they know, or if they're able to put some value, or if you and them are able to come to a shared value of your business. But if not, then if the valuation is not known yet, then they give you the money as a convertible note. So a convertible note, or often known as convertible debt, is structured in such a way that it's actually a debt. This means this is money you owe, or this is money your business owes, right? But then it's structured in such a way that it can convert from debt to equity at a much later stage in your business. So maybe an ideal way is when you raise follow-on funding, maybe your business becomes more mature, and then you raise follow-on funding, maybe from a much bigger investor or group of investors, and then there's an evaluation then, and then they use that to tell what equity that convertible debt turns into. So it's either for equity or convertible debt. Over to you, Fogo.
Donc, dans tout cet exercice, vous devez comprendre votre audience, comprendre votre cible d'investisseurs. Et quand vous le comprenez avec leurs objectifs, vous savez exactement comment vous comporter. Commençons par les business angles. Les business angles en français, ça va être ange de l'affaires. Généralement, dans l'environnement, par exemple, du Cameroun, j'aime parler de prête-nom. Prête-nom, ça veut dire que c'est des gens qui mettent de l'argent dans votre activité sans un justificatif vraiment objectif, parce qu'ils ont un intérêt personnel et ils sentent votre business. Donc, c'est des gens qui, généralement, ne vont pas être trop exigeants à vous donner de l'argent. Quand vous leur parlez, ils comprennent. Quand ils sentent quelque chose, ils comprennent. Ils ne sont pas exigeants autant que les capitaux risqueurs. Donc, ça, c'est les business angles. Et c'est donc des gens qui ont une passion. Ça peut être une passion commune. Et ils ont senti en vous un visionnaire vers qui eux-mêmes ils peuvent se réincarner. Ça veut dire qu'ils peuvent vous laisser faire et ils sont contents parce que ce que vous faites là-bas dans le même sens, si c'est par exemple le problème que vous résolvez, c'est un problème qu'eux-mêmes ils ont identifié et vous venez aujourd'hui leur dire vous avez la solution, ça les intéresse. Et mieux encore, eux, ils veulent rentrer plus dans votre projet. C'est le business angle. Et globalement, en fin de compte, ces business angles ont deux angles de vue. Ils peuvent rentrer dans le capital sans trop d'exigences. Vous leur demandez de l'argent, ils vous donnent de l'argent. Ou bien ils peuvent vous donner de l'argent en prêt en espérant que ce prêt sera convertible en action. En fait, c'est ça. Donc voilà globalement la façon dont vous devez prendre les business angles. Over to you. If you are speaking, please open your mic.
I think you're muted.
Yeah, sorry, I lost my internet briefly. So just go back to share my screen again. Yeah, can you see my screen?
It's coming up.
Okay, sorry about that. I just lost my internet.
Yeah.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, it's up now.
Awesome, thank you. So yeah. So now let's go to the venture capital, or the venture capitalists rather. So VCs, they have more structure, and their due diligence process is a little longer because of the structure, and they're looking for high growth potential startups. So this time, so when you're reaching out to a VC, you must be post revenue, you must have sustainable traction, or substantial traction to show that that this is to back your claim. You don't just sell vision, but you also sell track record as well. And this maybe is when you're trying to raise money from maybe about $1 million and above. They also they participate in seed round, but not mostly in pre-seed. They participate in seed round down to series A, B, C, D, and E. So venture capital, they use data and market share. This is how you appeal to them, and not just emotions and personal stories. You also use data. You need to convince them. And then also you highlight your competitive advantage. What sets you different from other existing products, and I'll explain to you when you're talking about your competition. I see a lot of founders make a mistake when pitching. They say, we don't have any competition. We are the first people in this industry, or we're the first person doing this. That's wrong. You might be the first person doing this, but does not mean that you don't have competition. And I'll give an example. Netflix, started on demand, video on demand, entertainment, right? But before Netflix, people had other ways to entertain themselves, and so if Netflix said we don't have any competition, that's a lie. At that time, we had DSTV. So DSTV, if you're in the African market, it is an African, as an African, program. So DSTV is, I think, in the English-speaking countries, then a lot of people know about DSTV, and in the French, I think the equivalent of I actually used to know the equivalent of that in France, because I spent some time there, but I actually have forgotten now. But this means that at the end of the day, DSTV also provides some sort of entertainment as well. And also, apart from that, cinemas do that as well. So the competitions to Netflix, apart from the current ones we know, which is more like Amazon Prime, and more localized ones like iFlix and Iroku TV, but they have other competitions, even if they are indirect, which includes DSTV, which also includes local cinemas. So if you're talking about your competition, never make that mistake to tell the investor, we don't have any competition, we are the first of our kind. No. Whatever you're doing, there's always a way in which it was done in the past. Even if it was not ideal, even if you're disrupting it, there's always a way in which it was done in the past. Highlight those that have tried to solve that problem, even if it's an old way of solving it. Highlight those people and tell what sets you apart from them. Over to you, Foko.
OK, toujours dans le fait que vous devez bien comprendre votre audience, nous avons aussi les venture capitalistes, les capitaux risqueurs, qui sont aussi un type d'investisseurs qui sont intéressés par votre projet lorsque il y a déjà un fort potentiel de marché et il y a une certaine croissance, ce qu'on appelle généralement les premiers succès. Donc ici, il est question pour vous d'utiliser les données réelles du marché que vous avez déjà obtenues pour pouvoir les captiver. C'est ça qu'eux, ils recherchent. Vous devez aussi faire un focus sur les avantages concurrentiels que vous avez et surtout l'expérience que votre équipe a. Parce qu'il faut dire que les venture capitalistes sont des mercenaires des affaires, comme j'aime souvent dire, c'est des mercenaires des affaires, c'est-à-dire qu'ils connaissent les affaires. Il est donc question que l'expérience que vous avez eue avec votre équipe doit être une expérience qui montre à ces investisseurs que vous êtes prêts, que vous êtes préparés en termes d'équipe. Parce que c'est des gens qui viennent avec du pouvoir, ils viennent avec des connexions, ils viennent avec des relations. Il faut au moins qu'ils trouvent aussi une équipe conséquente pour ne pas quelque part vous étouffer. Parce que si vous étouffez, ça va vous frustrer et la collaboration va mal se passer. Donc voilà globalement le rôle que les capitaux risqueurs jouent et comment est-ce que vous devez comprendre ce type d'investisseur. Over to you.
Thank you, Foko. Now, corporate investors, examples of them are Google. Like, these are my favorite examples. Google Ventures, Intel Capital, Salesforce Ventures, and these type of investors, they provide not only funding but resources beyond capital. And also they are most likely to invest, to acquire your business. And so some of them usually do this. They invest into your business just as a way to know if it's actually a right fit to acquire later in the future, right? So for example, GV, which is Google Ventures, can invest, some money into your business just to, to be sure that, hey, this is actually a right fit, because investing is quite less risky than acquisition, right? So they can invest a little money into your business and see how what you're able to do to it, and then eventually buy it. There are a lot of people that have done this in the past, like Stripe invested in Paystack, eventually acquired it. So corporate investors can offer more than just capital, and they are usually long term because they give you the money now, they are not like angel investors that are just looking for a way to get the money back within a year or two or three. they can, their capital can be a little bit patient, so that means that they can put money into your business and expect to receive it in the next 10 years, so they're not really in a hurry to get the money out immediately. And so, yeah, that concludes it for the types of investors. Over to you, Foco.
Donc, le dernier type d'investisseurs, ce sont les investisseurs institutionnels. Eux, ils cherchent si votre entreprise s'aligne sur leurs objectifs stratégiques en termes de retour sur investissement. Donc, ces investisseurs institutionnels sont des gens qui ont de gros enjeux. Et lorsque vous présentez, si vos enjeux, non, si votre projet ou vos objectifs correspondent à eux et ils n'ont aucun problème, ils vont adhérer. Donc, la question pour vous ici de bien comprendre qu'est-ce que ces investisseurs institutionnels, qu'est-ce que ces investisseurs institutionnels et professionnels veulent. Et globalement, pour en finir, sachez que votre présentation, votre pitch doit être adapté aux spécificités de chaque type d'investisseur. Over to you.
Thank you, Foco. And so, yeah, just some quick things to highlight, for before I, close this, and for questions. When you're pitching investors, you always think that, hey, investors are going to do due diligence on you, but it's very important that you as the founder do your own due diligence on the investor. And let me explain to you why. Before you go pitching to an investor, ask yourself, is this investor interested in my industry? We have investors that are not interested in certain industries, or they do not invest in certain sectors. If not sectors, but also geography. So it could be that, hey, this investor is interested only in Asian Pacific startups, or startups that are focused on the Asian Pacific market. And you as an African startup going to pitch to them, it's a complete no, right? So it's very important that you do due diligence before you go out to speak to an investor. Have they invested in similar startups like yours, operating in similar markets or the same market? What was the outcome of that investment? Were they able to provide more for that investor, for that startup, more than just funding? Were they able to provide some sort of resources for that startup that money just couldn't literally buy? A good example is Y Combinator. Y Combinator doesn't just only give you funding, but they also help you, along the line. For example, let's say Paystack is a financial gateway. They help startups, businesses to charge customers, and in Y Combinator, they help Paystack get customers through the Y Combinator community. So this means that every startup within a Y Combinator community can use Paystack as a financial gateway on their products. That gives them initial traction. This means this is not just this is beyond money. They help you to get more customers. They help you to get follow-on funding. Ask yourself that kind of question: does this investor give me more than just money? And so I'm just going to run through some things that you should focus on when you're trying to close out your pitch. Listen carefully to understand the question that anybody gives to you. Do not listen to respond. Listen to understand. When you understand, that gives you puts you in a better position to answer accurately. So take a moment to clarify the questions if needed. If you don't understand what the question is, it's very okay to say, I don't understand. Can you repeat your question? And this time add more clarity, make it be more specific, or if possible, give me more examples so I can understand what the question is. There's nothing wrong about telling them, I don't understand the question the first time. Now, address concerns directly and honestly. Emphasis on the honestly. Do not lie when you're pitching because you're trying to impress, because eventually the truth is going to come out. They're going to do some due diligence and they're going to figure out that you lied, and that breaks the trust. So when you're answering questions, be honest when you're answering questions, and be composed, and be confident. Actually, tell yourself that, hey, I'm standing here, I'm pitching. This means that I have something good to talk about. This means that I am the center of attraction. This should give you confidence to speak. And if you're pitching, especially in person, maintain an eye contact. If you're a little bit shy, look a little bit above their heads, not too much above their heads. Just look a little bit above their heads, make a little eye contact, then go back above their head. But the aim is to try as much as possible to maintain eye contact and give direct responses. So when they ask a question, don't beat around the bush, go straight to the point, be concise as possible, be specific as possible. And you can recap your pitch by picking out key points and then highlighting them, because most times people's attention span is not that great. Make sure that the first thing you say and the last thing you say is very important. So how you open the pitch and how you close it is very important. So make sure that at the opening, you capture the attention so that you can sustain that attention to the end of the pitch where you blow their breaths away. So deliver that final compelling insight to leave a strong presentation or to leave a strong impression. And if you want to, I have some people who believe that it's not good to say thank you at the end of the slide, because they are the ones that's supposed to tell you thank you, because you're literally giving them an opportunity to be part of something amazing. But if you want to say, I want to say thank you, you want to put a thank you slide and say thank you for listening to me, you can put that. But if you want to be a little bit cocky, you can say, any questions? And so, Foko, over to you, Foko.
Thank you very much. Donc, alors, en conclusion, on va retenir 2 ou 3 choses qui sont simples. Il faut écouter très attentivement l'ensemble des questions que les investisseurs peuvent se poser et bien les comprendre. Il faut prendre un temps clair pour répondre clairement aux questions qui permettent, aux questions, si elles sont posées. Il faut vous exprimer avec honnêteté et de façon directe à votre auditoire ou à votre audience. Il peut y avoir des questions challengeantes. Donc, c'est-à-dire, comme on dit souvent, des questions pièges. Vous devez démontrer à travers votre maîtrise que vous êtes préparé, en fait, à des questions qui vont vous surprendre. Vous ne devez pas paniquer, c'est ce qu'on veut par là dire. À tout moment, vous devez toujours avoir confiance en vous, quelle que soit la requête ou bien la question qu'on vous pose. Lorsque vous ne connaissez pas la réponse à une question, admettez que vous ne la connaissez pas. Il ne faut pas mentir ou bien il ne faut pas dire n'importe quoi. Parce que une question qu'on vous a posée, vous pouvez faire un renvoi à une réponse plus tard ou même solliciter l'apport d'un expert plus tard aussi. Donc, les questions que les gens vous posent en fait permettent que vous compreniez qu'eux ils sont engagés. Et quand quelqu'un vous pose une question, adressez-vous à lui. Quand vous répondez à la question, certes, c'est à tout le monde, mais il faut qu'il comprenne que c'est avec lui que vous êtes connecté et que c'est important que vous lui apportez des éclaircissements. À la fin d'une présentation, faites toujours un point de tout ce qui a été dit. Et puis aussi, il est important de laisser une bonne impression quand vous avez fait une présentation. Et pour finir, des fois, on dit de dire merci, mais en réalité, qui doit remercier qui? Par priorité, vous dites merci, vous mettez merci à la fin de votre présentation, mais il se passe que la plupart du temps, c'est même l'audience qui est satisfaite de votre présentation et vous remercierez. C'est pour ça qu'il est aussi conseillé, pour clore votre présentation, de simplement dire, est-ce qu'il y a des questions? Thank you. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Foko. So now I will just be answering some questions in the chat box. So the first question is, how do you pitch a business idea that you have not yet started? So now I'm believing that if you say business idea, that means that you don't have an MVP, because obviously if not, you would have said a product. So you're trying to pitch a business idea. So you have an idea for a product, but you've not created it yet, but you're trying to pitch it to an investor. And the good news is that there are a number of investors that can give you money for just an idea. A good example is Roddenberry Foundation. So Roddenberry Foundation gives between $2,500 to $15,000 for just a great idea, a bold, audacious idea. And I think the Tony Limele Foundation also does that as well. So what you should do is you should now sell the vision and sell your competency to execute. Now you're going to let them know that, hey, this is the idea for the product. This is how we've been able to validate that this product is going to be useful. We've had a number of conversations with customers that are experiencing this problem, and they say that they're going to, you know, that they can't wait for this solution to be out. Now, give specifics about customers that you've spoken to and that are willing to put their hands on this product once it's out. And tell them how much these customers are willing to pay. And now let me explain why that is very important. What is important is that your product is as important as what someone is willing to pay for it. And so ask your customers, I have this idea, I have this product idea for a product. How much are you willing to pay for it when I build it? And that tells you how much they see or how much they're going to value your product. You need to communicate that to the investors that, hey, you know, when we, you know, during the market research, people are willing to pay for this product X amount of money. And, you know, and this gives them a good idea of how much you're going to generate. How many customers do you have in the pipeline that are waiting for this product? Very important. It means this means that there's an initial market that is ready to create, you know, or there's actually a demand, you know, because at the end of the day, demand is what drives your product growth. So have you been able to create demand for it? Even if you've not yet built it out, is there a demand for it? How, you know, what shows that your team is the right team to execute it? What have you guys done in the past? You know, even if it's not related to this sector or this product, have you guys done something in the past that demonstrates your perseverance and your persistency and that consistency and that grit, you know, and that passion? You need to demonstrate it. If one of you have, you know, have built a career elsewhere and you've achieved something great, talk about it. You know, do you have a connection with industry stakeholders? You know, maybe you have a connection with a big organization that is willing to partner with you when you launch. Also state tractions that you have ahead, commitments people have had. If possible, if you can sign MOUs with these people, is also great as well. But this time, what you have to sell is the vision, the future, you know, and you have to be as specific as possible because it has not happened. And so you don't want to leave any room for doubts. Foco.
Ok, donc nous avons eu deux questions. Je crois qu'on commence par la première. La première, c'est comment est-ce qu'on fait la présentation d'une idée d'affaires qu'on n'a pas encore commencé. Ok, donc ici, vous devez savoir qu'une idée d'affaires peut quand même être quelque chose qu'on présente aux gens. Pourquoi? Parce que forcément, vous n'avez pas encore un produit que vous mettez sur le marché, mais les travaux que vous avez faits, les analyses, les équipes, les gens que vous avez à mobiliser dans le cadre de votre projet, parce que avoir une idée d'affaires veut dire que vous êtes déjà tout de même en mouvement. Il y a déjà une certaine animation que vous avez déjà impliqué certaines personnes. Donc ici, il faudrait mettre au devant le fait qu'il y a par exemple des parties prenantes, il y a par exemple des clients ou des fournisseurs qui sont intéressés par votre projet lorsqu'il sera réel. Voilà comment est-ce qu'on peut présenter une idée d'affaires. C'est que vous devez avoir tellement travaillé dessus au point où ce soit factuel. Il doit y avoir eu des négociations, il doit y avoir eu même une équipe. Vous pouvez avoir une équipe, des gens avec qui vous travaillez, c'est-à-dire que vous pouvez avoir un futur investisseur avec qui vous échangez de temps en temps. Vous pouvez avoir un futur client, un futur actionnaire, un futur employé. Bref, une idée prend corps et ça devient vendable quand vous créez de l'émulation autour. C'est pour ça qu'on parle de maturation. Quand vous avez déjà contacté un certain nombre de personnes qui ont pris des engagements, qui délibérément croient en votre projet. OK. This is for the first question. Are you reply to order?
Yeah, I'm still replying. I think there's 4 more to go. Yeah,
Okay.
so the other question is, how do you pitch a product or a project that is more of social impact and not really for profit? It's very simple. There are investors that are out there that are interested in just impact and not profit. And we have things like Acumen. They are mostly focused on patient capital. So they provide patient capital. They're not interested mostly in profit because they understand the importance of impact. Roddenberry also offers, also does that as well. When you're pitching this kinds of, kind of product that's focused on social impact and not necessarily profit, focus on how you're going to change the life of your customers, because that's where the impact is. And so the question is, if you're successful, how would the lives of your customers be? And that is the story you're going to tell. If we're successful, our customers will with XXXXX amount of, so you explain how the customer's life is going to change. You're going to paint a picture of how the customer's life is right now, and then paint a picture of the customer's life after interacting with your product, maybe in the next 1 to 2 years. And that's what you're going to paint. You're going to paint the impact and not just the profit, because the profit, mostly focuses on how much, the unit economics, how much, it takes to acquire a customer, how much the customer is going to give back to you. But now you're not going to put that into consideration. You're just going to focus on how you're going to change the life of the customers, how big your impact is going to be, how your impact is going to grow over time, the people you're going to partner with to ensure that your impact, scales very, exponentially. But then, like you said, you're going to focus on the impact and not the profit. And trust me, it's going to be enough, because some investors are focused on impact and not necessarily profit. Over to you, Foko.
Oui. La deuxième question nous ramène à savoir comment est-ce qu'on peut présenter un projet qui a de l'impact social, mais pas véritablement le profit. Ici aussi, vous devez savoir, le jeu, c'est un jeu d'intérêt. Si vous avez un projet qui a de l'impact, il est question pour vous toujours de savoir qu'est-ce que les investisseurs recherchent. Parce qu'en termes de projet, il y a les projets à but lucratif et les projets à but non lucratif. Toujours est-il que ça reste des entreprises, ça reste des projets. Donc, lorsque un projet est à impact social, c'est à vous d'identifier les différentes cibles, les différentes parties prenantes et voir comment les engager. Et quand vous avez identifié ça, de toute façon, c'est faisable. Vous suivez le même process qu'on vous a expliqué pour pouvoir leur faire comprendre que voici le problème qui a été identifié, voici la solution. Et s'ils sont intéressés par le fait que vous ne fassiez pas de profit, ils vont vous suivre. Et s'ils ne sont pas intéressés, forcément, ils ne vont pas vous suivre. Donc ici, vous devez ressortir la même chronique qu'on vous a expliqué depuis aujourd'hui. Tout est question d'intérêt. Over to you.
Thank you, Foko. So the third question is kindly throw, or it's not a question, it's more of a suggestion, kindly throw more light on CAC and LTV on business model. So I'm just going to, give examples now. So CAC is literally telling you how much a customer costs you, or how much a customer costs to get them to use your product. Or, so this includes marketing, awareness, and then sales, so marketing and sales budget, and including, the salary you pay these personnels. But it includes how much you spent from getting the customers to be the customer or the potential customer to know about your product down to the day that they finally get onboarded. That money is what the CAC is. And it's very easy to calculate your CAC. You can pick any period of your operations, maybe like 2 years or 2 months, depending, and calculate how much you've spent on marketing and sales. And put that aside and ask yourself, in this same time period, in this same time frame, how many customers did I get? And put that aside. Now, the money divided by the number of customers, that tells you how much money you spent per customer. So if you spent $2,000 to acquire 2,000 customers, then 2,000 divided by 2,000, 2,000 being the marketing and sales budget, divided by the number of customers, which is also 2,000, that gives you $1. That means that you spent $1 to acquire a single customer, and that means your CAC is $1. Now, LTV, also known as CLV, is called customer lifetime value. And this is how much your customer is going to give back to you. This makes you understand, am I running a profit or a loss? It gives you that understanding on how the percentage profit or the percentage loss. And so if it costs you $1 to acquire a customer, to be able to break even, that customer has to give you back $8, or else you lose it, you're going to run a loss. And so you ask yourself, how long does a single customer on average stay with my business before they churn out, before they leave the product? They can leave the product for more advanced solutions, or just maybe because the problem no longer exists, So how long does it take typically for a single customer to leave? And if it takes 2 years, how much does that customer give you in a single month? You can find that, based on, the average revenue that a single customer gives to you. If maybe you generated $5,000, in a certain time frame, and the customers that generated that $5,000 was 300 customers, you divide it, then you know how much a single customer gives to you. Then you multiply it by the average time in which a customer stays with you to get the CLV or the LTV. And when you get that, for example, if you get if your CLV or LTV is maybe $50, when you've calculated how much the customer gives you per month, multiplied by the average amount of time they stay with you, maybe it becomes $50. Maybe they give you $1 per month, and then they stay with your business for 50 months. On average, that is $50. That means that your CAC to LTV ratio becomes 1:, or ratio 50, and that means that your business is likely able to make, to become 50%, 50 times profitable. That means your business can give you 50x return on investment, because it costs you just $1 to acquire that customer, but then that single customer gives you $50. And that means you get $50 for every one customer, for every $1 that you put into the business. Foko?
OK. La troisième question, pardon, est-ce qu'on peut donner plus d'éclairement ou bien plus d'éclaircissement sur le coût d'acquisition de la clientèle et le temps et ce que ce client-là nous rapporte, ce que chaque client nous rapporte de retour sur investissement de la clientèle. Donc, en fait, le coût d'acquisition de la clientèle ici, c'est en fait une valeur qui exprime tout ce que vous avez eu à investir pour avoir des clients. Et c'est important que ce soit déterminé dans le cadre de votre business plan. Ça peut être sur une période, ça peut être sur l'énergie que vous avez mis, ça peut être effectivement de la dépense que vous avez fait tous les jours. Toujours est-il que lorsque vous regardez toutes les activités que vous avez menées pour pouvoir avoir des clients et que ça vous a coûté, par exemple, $2,000 et que vous avez eu 2,000 clients, vous comprendrez maintenant que pour avoir le coût d'acquisition d'un client, ici, ça va être effectivement 2,000 sur 2,000, ça vous donne $1. Alors, parallèlement, le lifetime value, c'est-à-dire que comment est-ce que vous récupérez votre argent sur ce client-là, dans la durée, bien évidemment. Dans la durée, comment est-ce que vous récupérez votre argent? Ici aussi, c'est une valeur que vous devez calculer pour savoir que tout l'investissement que j'ai mis sur un client, en moyenne sur un client, qu'est-ce que ce client-là m'apporte en retour dans une certaine durée? Et si on se rend compte que, par exemple, on fait le même exercice, vous avez eu en retour 16 000 et que chaque client, et que vous avez eu 2,000 clients, à ce moment-là, vous allez prendre 16 000 divisé par 2,000. Ça vous donne donc comme retour sur investissement par client 8. À ce moment-là, OK, vous avez un bon business model parce que autant vous investissez pour acquérir des clients, autant ces clients-là sont rentables, puisque ça, quand on fait 8 moins 1, ça donne 7. Donc, ces clients-là sont rentables. Ça vaut la peine de les avoir et nous sommes sur la bonne cible. Next, please. What do you?
Okay, thank you, Foko. So the next question is, what is the standard duration for presenting an investor pitch? And I would say, on average, is between 3 to 5 minutes. But this can vary, heavily depending on, what the investor tells you that, the allowed time is. They can say, oh, you have 3 minutes to pitch, you have 4 minutes, you have 5 minutes, depending on that. But the true investor pitch is just 5 seconds, 14 words. And I'm going to explain what that means. It's called elevator pitch. And it literally means what it means, elevator pitch. And I will tell you, in 2021, or 2022 rather, I was in Kigali, Rwanda. And then I saw elevator pitch in action. So I was in the same hotel room with Fred Swaneker. So Fred Swaneker is the founder of the African Leadership University. And I got into the elevator, and who did I see in the elevator? Fred Swaneker. And I've had a conversation with him earlier, but it was via email. Someone tried to introduce me to him and tell him about what I was doing, but we lost touch. And then I saw him again in the elevator in Rwanda, just he and I. I was on the 5th floor, and we were both going to the ground floor. So that means I had literally, let's say, 5 seconds to get to the ground floor, and I had 5 seconds to get him interested, to tell him what I am doing and get him interested. That's what they call elevator pitch. And so I literally just told him about what we do in a very simple sentence. Hey, Fred, I don't know if you know about me, but we've been in contact via email some time ago. I'm the founder of Savvy, and we've helped over 15,000 entrepreneurs from over 170 countries to build sustainable businesses. We've funded 9 of them, and we're looking for more partners to help us in our journey. As simple as that. It was all we needed to have a full-blown conversation throughout the rest of the day. And that's what they call elevator pitch. And so the question again, what's the standard duration? There is none, but ideally, you have just 5 seconds to convince an investor if they would want to hear the rest of your story. Over to you, Foko.
OK. Donc, la 4e question, c'est quelle est la durée standard d'une présentation, d'un pitch à investisseur? Donc, ici, vous devez comprendre qu'il n'y a pas de durée standard, ça dépend des circonstances. Toujours est-il que dans le cadre de l'elevator pitch, dans les présentations ascenseurs, présentations rapides, c'est un jeu dans lequel vous avez des fois, dans le cas qu'il prend 5 secondes pour convaincre un investisseur. Il a raconté l'histoire où il était au Rwanda, il a rencontré quelqu'un qu'il avait déjà connu à l'époque, celui qui a créé l'Africa Leadership University. Il le connaissait. Ils se sont rencontrés et ils se sont perdus de vue. Alors, un jour, ils se sont rencontrés dans l'ascenseur. Il était déjà au 4e et le monsieur était au 8e. Alors, ils sont retrouvés dans l'ascenseur. Il est question que le temps que lui sorte de l'ascenseur, qu'il est percuté. Alors, je ne vais pas relire ce qu'il a dit, ou bien il a dit genre, bonjour monsieur tel, je m'appelle tel, j'ai créé une start-up, on s'est rencontrés déjà dans le passé, j'ai créé une start-up qui a déjà eu 50 000 personnes sur la plateforme et qui a eu à faire financer 90 personnes par exemple. Et comme on vous a dit, votre présentation doit être ciblée. Il connaissait le monsieur et il savait ce qu'il voulait. Il a utilisé des mots simples et directs. Ce qui fait qu'en fonction de ce que vous dites, le monsieur vous donne sa carte, que OK, rappelle-moi à 14 heures, OK, voyons-nous dans 2 jours, OK, voilà. Donc voilà ce qu'on appelle convaincre quelqu'un. Donc la durée va dépendre des objectifs que vous voulez atteindre. Toujours est-il que même en 5 secondes, on peut convaincre quelqu'un. Over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Foko. And the last question is, or a suggestion rather, elaborate more on convertible debt and equity. And so, yeah, I'm going to explain this the best way possible. So it's, there's more clarity into what, what these things are. So you have a business, but it's very early, right? And so people don't really know what is going to be in the future. They don't know if it's going to be successful. They don't know if it's going to be a failure, or if it's going to be successful, how successful is it going to be? Nobody knows about that. And so they can't put a valuation, they can't put a value on your business at this moment because it's just too early, So you can say, hey, we're raising $100,000 and we're going to give you 10%. If you do that, that means you're literally telling them that you're evaluating your business at $1 million. And you're too early to, to put a valuation or to put a number to the value of your business. Because it's not that nobody's saying that your business does not have value, but we don't know. And we don't want to evaluate erroneously. And so we say, okay, let's give you this money, but now it's going to be convertible debt. And let me explain to you what convertible debt is. Initially, if the investor is giving you $100,000, it's just going to be $100,000 debt. This means that for any reason in the future, if maybe you're not able to fulfill your promise, you owe them $100,000, the business anyway. And but there's structure, so there's a document or agreement that says how that's going to convert from a debt into equity in the future. That's why it's called convertible debt. It means it's actually a debt, but it can convert from being a debt or money owed into equity in the business only when the investor or when there's actually a known value of your business. This means that, for example, I'm giving you $100,000, but I don't know the value of your business, right? And so it's just $100,000 that you owe me. But if in the near future you raise $500,000 at $2 million valuation, that means that how much I gave you $100,000. So how much is $100,000 if you're valued at 2 million? You get it? So that means maybe the investor owns roughly 2.5% of your business, right? So at the end of the day, that's how it's converted, right? It's actually money given to you. The investor wants it to actually be equity, but they don't know the value of your business. This is mostly with angel investors. Sometimes even VCs do this. They don't know what what that money, what value or what equity to take from that business, and they don't want to be impartial by giving you something less or to put a ridiculous valuation to your business. And so they just put it as a debt into your business. So it's more like debt financing initially. But then once you raise follow-on funding, and then there's a valuation known, because that time, your business is have more structure, traction, they understand the trajectory, the growth rate and everything, then they can figure out, so now how much money, how much equity can that $100,000 buy? It's as simple as that. And equity, we all know, is just giving you money for a percentage of your business. But a convertible debt means that they're not sure yet. And so they initially want it to be they want it to be equity, but they're not sure yet, what equity to take. And they don't want to take too much or take too little. And so they just put it as a debt. And then eventually that converts into equity when the picture becomes much clearer. Foko?
Great. Donc, la dernière question, c'est est-ce que vous pouvez mieux expliquer les dettes convertibles et le capital? Donc, quelle est vraiment la relation? Donc, ici, on va expliquer très simplement. Donc, il se passe qu'avec les business angles, par exemple, on vous l'a dit, c'est des gens qui vous donnent de l'argent. Ça peut être de fortes sommes, ça peut être de petites sommes. Toujours est-il qu'ils vous donnent de l'argent. Et comme vous ne savez pas comment qualifier ça, c'est dans une dette. Alors, qu'est-ce qui se passe pour que ça devienne en capital? Comme c'est une dette convertible, il se passe que à un moment, vous aurez une raison de procéder à la valorisation de votre entreprise. Dans l'exemple qu'il a pris, c'est peut-être que vous avez eu des investisseurs qui ont mis pour 5 millions de dollars avec une valeur de 2 millions et ainsi de suite, des primes d'émission. Donc, vous vous retrouvez donc, OK, voilà une opération qu'on a faite et qui peut nous servir de référence. Non, pardon, peut-être j'ai mal expliqué. À l'occasion de l'entrée de certains investisseurs qui ont exigé la valorisation, vous faites une valorisation. En fait, c'est ça. Voilà dans votre mesure. À ce moment-là, pour récompenser les business angels, donc ceux qui vous ont donné de l'argent en prêt, c'est encore, vous ne vous accordiez sur le correspondant en termes de capital. Ce repère qui est l'opération que vous avez fait avec un investisseur, c'est donc de mesurette. Et à ce moment-là, ça devient clair. Le problème, c'est que quand le business angel vous donne de l'argent, que ce soit vous ou lui, vous avez peur de soit sous-valoriser ou soit survaloriser, en fait, c'est ça. C'est-à-dire que si vous donnez peut-être 1 million et que vous lui donniez seulement le capital de 100 000, il peut être embêté ou bien vous-même pouvez être embêté. Alors que lorsqu'on a une opération plus ambitieuse ou bien plus costaud qui se passe et que on procède formellement à la valorisation, à ce moment-là, on a une valeur qui tient tout le monde. Et le business angel peut maintenant entrer dans votre capital en prenant des participations. Et sur l'argent que vous lui devez, la dette que vous lui devez, on sait maintenant quelle partie va aller exactement dans le capital et quelle partie va rentrer dans votre bonus. OK. Voilà ce qu'on pouvait dire pour aujourd'hui. Over to you, Shimizu.
Okay, thanks. Thank you very much, Chide, for this very insightful session. Thank you as well, Foucault, for being kind enough to translate the session for us. I hope you all enjoyed this masterclass on how to pitch to your investors, and I'm sure you'll be able to have, like Chidi said, you'll be able to make a 5-second pitch to a potential investor to even open the door for you to take the conversation forward. So I want to say a big thank you again to Chidi and to Foko and to our partners, GIZ. A lot of you are asking about the attendance link. It's in the description box. So if you can refresh your page, if you are not seeing it, refresh your page, you'll be able to see the attendance link. Thank you again, and I'm sure we'll see you soon. Thanks, Chidi. Thanks, Foko.
Ok, n'oubliez pas de remplir la liste de présence qui est dans la zone de description de cette vidéo. Remplissez la liste de présence. Merci et bonne soirée à tous. Next time, bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.